So, having said that about the Roberts Court, this new report, this new survey about how respect for the court is gone, by any measure of these poll results, or this, not poll, but the research results, there no longer is any respect for the Supreme Court. Now, Reverend Dr. Susan Brooks Thistlethwaite, who is professor of theology at Chicago Theological Seminary, had this to say. In 2005, I was invited to be an expert witness in the Judiciary Committee's confirmation hearings on John Roberts' appointment to be Chief Justice. I argued before the Judiciary Committee that I saw very disturbing trends, even in the limited amount of his papers released by John Roberts. In my oral testimony, I said, quote, "There is evidence, and I have cited detail in my written testimony, there is evidence that Roberts' judicial posture is more toward permissiveness and religious establishment and is less than vigorous in the defense of religious minorities and their freedoms. He also refers to the so-called right of privacy." That's how Roberts phrased it. "He has objected to affirmative action, but he has favored expanding both the authority of law enforcement and the authority of the executive." End quote. Now, readers should recall that in those hearings, to the contrary of what Dr. Thistlethwaite was saying, to the contrary, John Roberts had promised that he would bring his words, no agenda, to his tenure as Supreme Court Chief Justice. And he would take a minimalist approach, lying son of a bitch, to constitutional interpretation. Why don't they impeach him for perjury? I mean, you're under oath when you testify before the Congress, right? He's a goddamn liar. In addition to being a neo-fascist, John Roberts is a liar. The prima facie evidence of that is his own testimony versus his actions as Supreme Court Justice, Chief Justice. What more do you need? Reverend Dr. Thistlethwaite continues. She says he compared his way of interpreting the law to that of an umpire calling balls and strikes. I remember those words. That's what he said. I'll just be an umpire calling balls and strikes. Oh, really? So Reverend Dr. Thistlethwaite adds, the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment just struck out, in my view. That is, that the government should establish no religion or prohibit the free expression thereof. Chief Justice John Roberts and the 4 other conservatives on the U.S. Supreme Court have now ruled that legislative bodies such as city councils can begin their meetings with prayer, even if it plainly favors a specific religion. Justice Kennedy, writing for the majority, said those given the opportunity to pray before legislative meetings should be, his word, unfettered by what government officials might find appropriate. By contrast, consider the opinion of Sandra Day O'Connor in the 1984 Lynch versus Donnelly case. O'Connor's fundamental concern was whether, in regard to the Establishment Clause, a particular government action conveys, O'Connor's words, a message to non-adherents that they are outsiders. They're not full members of the political community, and an accompanying message to adherents that they are insiders, favored members of the political community. Why, of course, that's what the Establishment Clause sought to prevent. That government, because the people that founded the country, who were students of the Enlightenment, the people who founded this country, even though they were racist, genocidal bastards, but they also understood the damage that could come from religious conflict. I mean, they've been through it. Some of them. It was in their history. Reverend Dr. Thistlethwaite adds, when prayer is so-called unfettered, how many times do non-Christian members of a particular community need to hear prayers to Jesus Christ, for example, before they feel it is the Christians who are the most favored members of the political community, to use Sandra Day O'Connor's words? Not long. Oh, but they did invite a Wiccan priestess in Greece, New York. So No problem. And they did invite a Jewish rabbi. So, you know, the other 165 Christian preachers who offered up some crazy invocation, that was supposed to balance them out. A Wiccan priestess and a Jewish rabbi. Nice. Huh? A little bit more on this when we come back, because this is important stuff. It really is. John Roberts is going to be Supreme Court Chief Justice probably for another 20 years, if not longer, unless, like Kathy says, he's got a brain tumor or something. I don't know. He's going to do tremendous damage in addition to what this neo-fascist Supreme Court has already done. We'll be back in a minute.